And in 3, 2, 1. What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Double A Podcast, your source of entertainment in terms of videography and photography and basically whatever we want to talk about. Today is Tuesday, April 11th, 2018. I'm Eric.
And I'm Zach.
And yeah, guys, we are back here for another podcast. Today we're going to be talking about NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters, what's going on there, as well as cover some questions and whatnot that you guys have. So before we get into NAB or anything, let's dive into some questions.
All right, so Stevie Hardy said, "We'll be interested in hearing about your ongoing G9 experience. I just bought it, like it, but a lot to learn. Would be great to see some of your photos."
So G9, we've talked about it a lot in the last two podcast episodes, if you will. Not that we're really labeling these by episode number. Anyway, we're not going to be talking much about the Panasonic G9, but that is our photography camera at the moment. And we'll definitely be showing you photos and whatnot as we progressively get into it, start using it a little more. We're going to be really getting into a lot of event photography coverage, so weddings, sweet 16s with that camera. We just did a birthday shoot. It was first a 1-year-old's birthday. Photos came out pretty good. We have to work a little bit more on our flash and lighting setup, but stay tuned for that because we're going to be talking a lot more about the G9 and using it in actual real-world examples. So, like I said, just stay tuned for that.
Okay, so next, Ravi, I'm not going to try and say your last name because I don't want to butcher it, said, "What is your long-term opinion about this device? How does it take extreme heat or cold or rain? Your reply will very help. Thank you in advance. Cheers." And he was talking in terms of the Zeus Smart Tire inflator caps.
Yeah, so
the valve stems.
Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, I guess, maybe even like 2 months ago, I made a video on a product from Noda. It's their smart tire valves. They bro, your phone goes off in every single video.
I tried to put on Do Not Disturb.
And you clicked the wrong button, of course. Anywho, so yeah, those are just little caps. They go onto your car, onto the wheels, so it can monitor the tire pressure. I got this comment on this video, so I just wanted to address it in this podcast. In terms of how they have held up, they still work really well. Haven't really had any problems. I will say though, if you're in a location like us, we're in New Jersey, and that has a lot of snow and rain. Rain's not a problem. With snow though, there's salt on the roads, so that starts corroding the metal a little bit. It's not that it's going to ruin the device, but it can sometimes get kind of stuck on the valve of your tire, so you might take some WD-40 to actually get it off. So in terms of how is it holding up? It's holding up all right, but don't just leave the caps on for a super long period of time. You should take them off every couple months, clean them up a little bit so they don't get stuck.
All right, and last question. Carly asked, "What lenses do you currently use for the G9, and what are the best lenses for weddings?"
Okay, so I said we're not going to talk much about the G9, but I guess it came up
last
again.
Question.
Last question, guys, I promise. So first off, in terms of lenses we have right now, our Panasonic G85, totally not Panasonic fanboys here, we got a 12 to 60 mil. It's like an f3.5 to like 5.6, so it's not their nicer lens, which is I think a 2.8 to about a f4, which I kind of want to get. Anywho, that's a pretty good utility lens, not the greatest lens. We have a couple prime lenses, 42.5 f1.7, a 20 mil f1.7, a Rokinon 12 mil t2, and a 35 to 100 constant f2.8. Really awesome.
Yeah, that lens I love. That's probably one of my favorite lenses to use for weddings, especially for portraits and stuff like that, and a lot of outdoor pictures. I love that lens.
Yeah, it's a good lens. Unfortunately, even though it's a constant f2.8, f2.8, especially on a micro four thirds, is not the greatest lens.
Yeah.
So in terms of best lenses for weddings, we have a wedding coming up actually for photography and videography, but for the G9, we're going to be probably using two prime lenses, a 25 f1.4 and a 42.5mm f1.2. Both those lenses are going to perform pretty well in low light, should get some pretty decent depth of field for what they are. And then in terms of a wider lens, if you have to go wider than that, maybe the 12 to 60mm f2.8 to f4. That's going to be a great utility lens. Or even maybe, and I don't know about this one, but maybe I think it's the Leica 8mm to 18.
Yeah.
It's an f2.8 to f4. That's going to be a really wide lens, so be good for tight environments. But those are basically the lenses that we're using right now. Any of those lenses are going to be pretty good, minus the 12 to 60 f3.5 to 5.6. That's going to be struggling in low light tremendously. And so does the 35 to 100mm, because it's only an f2.8. So I recommend you go prime lenses.
Yeah, definitely prime.
So anyway, let's get into our main topic with this podcast, and that is NAB 2018. NAB is the National Associations for Broadcasters. This is a time when companies are going to come out, start talking about their products that they're either going to be revealing that day or a little bit down the line this year. And there's a plethora of companies and products that were announced. We want to focus on one today, and that is by Blackmagic. They came out with a new camera, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K edition. Now, the original Blackmagic camera came out a couple years ago. It only shot in HD, but for $1,000, you got raw capability in video, which was unheard of for that price. So that is why a lot of people jumped on it. And you probably weren't actually in the market for a Blackmagic when it came out. But at one point, they even had them for 50% off. $500 raw camera. That is insane.
It's a steal.
Anyway, though, their new camera, trying to compete with newer cameras in the 4K market, and it looks rather interesting. Diving into its design, I see, Zach, you got a picture pulled up for it.
So right off the bat, personally, I think it looks okay.
It looks interesting.
Yeah. So us shooting on DSLRs, obviously all of our Panasonic line cameras, in general, take a DSLR camera and then chop the top off of it.
Yeah. There's no viewfinder.
No dial selector, nothing like that. So I mean, overall, it looks a little bit like a toy. It looks okay to me. A little long, and it doesn't have as deep as a hand grip as the G9, which I didn't expect. But again, overall it looks okay, but I'm sure it's going to perform phenomenally.
It looks like they took some of the design principles from the original Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. It's a little long, has a big touch screen or a screen. I don't know if the original Pocket Cinema had a touch screen.
I don't think so.
But this one has a 5-inch screen, the new 4K
pretty big
one. It's a decent size. So maybe you don't even need a viewfinder. I don't know. But with the original Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, it didn't have a hand grip. It was really made to be put on like some sort of rig, so you could rig it up, do whatever you want with it, and not really shoot handheld. But they're really trying to compete in a different market, I feel, with this new one. But it looks weird, the size. Some parts are a little bulkier than I feel like they should be. It's going to be interesting when we actually see this camera. But besides the physical design of it, we should talk about its internals. So obviously it's going to shoot in 4K. It's going to have RAW capabilities, ProRes RAW, I believe. A plethora, actually, of ProRes recipes, if you will. The sensor on it. So they're going with a full Micro Four Thirds sensor. You're going to not have any additional crop factor that you would have on other versions. I think of the last generation Pocket Cinema camera. So for us, we shoot all in with Micro Four Thirds cameras, GH5, G85, G9, et cetera,
the whole 9.
So we're going to actually be able to use all of our current lenses with this camera, which is awesome. Blackmagic has stated that they're going to allow communication between the camera and the lens. So it's going to be able to autofocus, adjust the aperture, so on and so forth. So you don't have to use straight up cinema glass that's all manual. The question is it going to be good in terms of autofocus because it can talk to the lens? I don't know. I don't know what kind of autofocus system it really is going to have.
Yeah, it all depends on the kind of glass you're using.
Exactly. So there's also a lot of ports and inputs
XYZ,
exactly. So do you want to quickly go over that?
Yeah. So I think it's going from top to bottom. On the top we have 3.5 audio jack, standard, your Apple headphones. We have a full-size HDMI, which is nice, so you can hook up your monitor or whatever you want if you're shooting on a tripod or whatever the case may be.
Or even use an external recorder. It's nice though that it's full size, so you don't have to deal with those kind of cheaper, or not even cheaper, but more delicate, smaller HDMIs. Even my GH5 has a full HDMI out, which is fantastic.
Backing on what you're saying, with the full-size HDMI, if you're trying to hook up a recorder to it or a monitor, do you need it? I don't know, because you already have a 5-inch screen, so
true that
you have more than enough real estate to see what you're looking at.
Yeah, and a lot of cameras have HDMI out, SDI out, so you can record like an Atomos, Shogun, Ninja, whatever, an external recorder, so you can get really high quality video recording. But this camera is going to allow all the native raw recordings, ProRes recordings, so you really don't even need an external recorder. It's all built in. Yeah,
which is nice. We have a USB-C, which is great for direct external recording.
Which we'll talk about.
I'm pretty excited for that. That's a big move by Blackmagic. We have DC power, awesome. And then we have a mini XLR, but it still provides 48 volts of phantom power. So
yeah, I've never.
That's honestly, sorry to interrupt you again,
all right.
But that's a lot. They for what they put on the ports, I think they focused and got all of the main things that they should get.
Hands down. I'm really surprised actually with some of the inputs and outputs.
Yeah.
So going back to what Zach said, the USB Type C, that is going to be interesting. Yeah. So first off, to mention that we're going to have an SD card and a CFast card to record media to this camera, which is awesome. However, if you're going to be recording for a long time, you don't have a big SD card, you can actually plug in a USB-C hard drive, like one of those really small Samsung hard drives.
Yeah.
Plug it right into the camera, and it's going to record right to the hard drive or the SSD. So when you're done recording, I can just take that hard drive, plug it right into my computer, call it a day. I don't need to worry about transferring things to other hard drives, transferring all my SD cards to a hard drive. It's all ready to go from that hard drive. That is awesome.
And it also saves hours of time.
Yeah, it'll save us a plethora of time. Additionally, we're gonna have, so like Zach mentioned, there's a mini XLR with 48 volts of phantom power. So you're gonna have a pretty decent way to input audio instead of just a standard 3.5 millimeter jack. For some reason, I really wish that they had a full XLR on it, but that's not going to happen at all. It'll be way too big,
and it's too small of a camera. I feel like they could have sacrificed the size to put a full XLR.
Yeah, but at that point, you're kind of looking at like an Ursa Mini. So I don't know. The only thing, minus the size of the mini XLR, I mean, I think it's fine. Might be an extra adapter or something, depending on your microphone. I'm just a little disappointed that there's not two XLR on it, because I might still need to get a separate like audio mixer, audio board to manage microphones. It would be nice if there was two, but should I really complain? Probably not. Let's talk about a little bit more with the image quality though. The sensor. Zach, do you know what kind of sensor this has? Do you know what the sensor is similar to in terms of other cameras?
I mean, we are filming on Panasonic.
Yeah,
I mean, I know you guys know what size sensor Panasonic has. Yeah, it's Micro Four Thirds.
Yeah.
Cut to the chase.
With that mention though, I don't know if we got official confirmation on this, but it looks like this camera might have the same sensor as the Panasonic GH5S.
Same sensor.
Yeah. So I'm shooting currently on the GH5. The GH5S, which we might talk about in another video, but the GH5S, essentially S standing for sensitivity, it's going to be really good in low light. So if we have that same sensor on the Pocket Cinema camera, we could be getting some pretty decent low light capabilities. Additionally, they have stated that there is a dual native ISO on this camera up to 25,600 ISO, which is a crazy amount of sensitivity.
Yeah.
The reality is you might only be able to film up to like 6,400 ISO until it starts to get a little too grainy. I don't know. I don't have the camera yet. Keyword yet.
I feel like I agree with you at 6,400, 7,000 range. Yeah, it's going to start getting grainy. But it is nice that you have that much flexibility of sensitivity to.
It looks like there's going to be a lot of sensitivity. So this could be a potential decent for what it is, a low light beast. It might not exactly compete with like Sony's A7S, but you know, I think the GH5S model holds up quite well to the A7S. So if this new Pocket Cinema camera can hold up to the GH5S, we could have a really solid camera for what it is.
Yeah.
Now, additionally, you mentioned that there is DC power options with this camera, so you can just plug it into a wall. Perfect. That could potentially be really necessary. The battery life on these cameras seems like it's only going to be 60 minutes. That's what Blackmagic says. 60 minutes.
Yeah, and that's probably 60 minutes at lowest video settings. And
I don't like if you're shooting all 4K. I don't know what the power is going to be or the battery life is going to be. So that could be quite
the
annoying.
Size of the camera, how big of a battery can you fit?
And for it shooting, you know, raw, having raw capabilities, I don't know. We'll have to see. With going back to the sensor though, in terms of some other quality you're going to get out of it, not only should you get pretty good low light capabilities out of this camera, it's going to be able to shoot in 10-bit color space or 12-bit, which is pretty sweet. And at 13 stops of dynamic range, it's a decent amount of dynamic range. You're going to be getting some really good images with this camera. It honestly seems like this camera is like a smaller version of the Ursa Mini. But it has more flexibility because the Ursa Mini actually kind of sucks in low light. You can't film more than ISO 800 without it looking awful. So that's why we don't shoot with Ursa Minis. So that's one reason
of many.
Why. Exactly. So I find this camera is really interesting. Like if Blackmagic,
they're hyping it up.
They're hyping it up, and if it is what it seems to be, I feel like Blackmagic really needs to work on their Ursa lineup and other cameras that they own, because this camera seems to, in some ways, perform better than other cameras, especially with the low light, some other functionality for its size. They're also, with the sensor, with image quality, you're going to be able to have LUT support built into the camera. So not only can you preview LUTs, you can also burn the LUTs into the image while recording. So that's sweet. A little less color work down the road, possibly. I don't know.
I think all like the LUT support being built in, and the capability to record right to external. I feel like Blackmagic is doing good by saving us time.
Yeah, no kidding.
On the back end, which I like a lot.
Yeah, no kidding. So let's just quickly recap this. The Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera 4K, relatively small camera, shoots in 4K, can shoot in RAW, ProRes, all that, so you don't need any external recorders. You have a plethora of inputs, allegedly great image quality from it with the 4K, with hopefully really good low light, so on and so forth. A plethora of ways to record your media too, which could potentially save you time while moving files over to a computer. You might not have to if you can record right to an SSD. And this camera, for everything we talked about, it should be shipping in September. and it's going to only cost $1,300. $1,300, that is insane. One thing I will mention is here at Aperture Alley, we're trying to figure out what our next camera is going to be. And we're not going to go long on this, but right now we might be picking up a Panasonic Gx9. And for all you guys saying, like, oh, why are you shooting Panasonic? And we're already in the ecosystem. Yeah. Why bother buying a different camera like a Canon that then we need different lenses for? If we can stay all in the ecosystem, it's just going to be fantastic. So the Gx9 not only could be a potential good B or C camera for when we're at weddings and whatnot for just an extra shot, but because of its size, we might be able to get a decent vlogging rig.
Yeah, definitely.
On. So we might be
tiny.
It's really tiny for what it is.
I think without a lens, it's probably the size of maybe a little bit bigger than the Canon PowerShot cameras.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not a big camera.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at our G85, you guys can't see it, but
it's right here.
Yeah, Zach's filming on it right now. The G85, I mean, the G85 is a relatively small camera, so think about just a little thinner, a little more slimmed down. Yeah. Could be a good vlogging camera. Yeah. Regardless of that, though, another camera we're looking at is the Panasonic GH5S. Well, the only reason we really want that is for weddings. Yeah. It could be really good because, you know, shooting
low
weddings,
light beast.
Low light, and we need it. The GH5 performs decently, but it could use some improvements.
Yeah, get the job done.
Exactly.
But now Blackmagic stepped into the game. So for $1,000 less. Yeah,
so the GH5S, which we get for low light primarily, it's going to cost us about $2,500 without a lens.
That's steep.
The Blackmagic camera, we should be able to get a camera that can perform pretty well in low light, and it's going to be $1,000 less. Like I said, only at $1,300. That could be a freaking steal.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty hyped about this camera. Now, we're hyped about it. You know, it seems awesome. Body and the design seems a little iffy. Blackmagic isn't the strongest in terms of their launches, so there's bound to be problems with this camera.
Unfortunately.
Zach, what do you think is going to be wrong with this camera? What do you think we're not going to like, or what other people might not like with this camera?
Honestly, I keep going back to it. I don't think people are going to like the ergonomics of it.
I mean, I hear you.
That's big.
At the same time, you have to realize that Blackmagic, all in all, has always been a camera company that you're not exactly holding their cameras. You're rigging them up, putting them on shoulder rigs, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
So is it that big of a problem? Probably
really.
not. But Blackmagic is trying to make a camera with a hand grip that you can handheld walk around filming. I don't think people are going to film like that. No. There also is no in-body image stabilization.
That's big.
So a lot of people these days are freaking out about in-body image stabilization. Yeah. A lot of people don't like the GH5S because it does not have in-body image stabilization. If you have a Zion crane or some sort of like Glide cam, I don't think it's a problem.
No.
But there's still a lot of people that like the in-body image stabilization.
And then battery life is...
Battery life could be a huge problem. Only at 60 minutes. I mean, it depends on what you're filming.
Yeah, sorry.
But for what we do,
we wouldn't even make it through a ceremony.
Yeah,
a long ceremony, that's a whole battery.
Exactly. And even if like we only have a 30-minute ceremony, we're gonna have to change out the batteries religiously. Like before the ceremony, pop in a new battery. Before the reception, pop in a new battery. And that's just gonna add up in terms of, sure, we're only buying a $1,300 camera,
but money for batteries.
We might need to buy like 20 batteries. I for you guys that shoot on Sony cameras, I don't know how you do it, because I've seen people that shoot on Sony cameras. They're changing out their batteries constantly. GH5S, G9. Yeah, we can get 2-3 hours of solid recording. So battery life is going to be a potential big problem with this camera,
especially for us.
And, you know, keep in mind, right now what we're doing a lot of is event videography and photography coverage. Obviously, this isn't a photography camera. I'm curious to see how good it performs in photography.
That's what I'm willing to see. That's going to be good.
Yeah, if the camera has the same sensor as the GH5S, it's only going to be like 10 megapixels. That's the word I was looking for. Megapixels. So, you know...
But no viewfinder.
but no viewfinder. So it's
How am I
honestly
gonna
going to
do
be
it?
impossible. Like, I mean, sure, we could probably get our thumbnails for videos with that camera,
I have
but
to be like this.
for actual photography, I don't think it's going to really be
I think it'll do
possible.
okay.
I mean, I think
Not great.
image quality might be all right, but it's going to
B or C
not
camera.
compete at
I
all
think
to
this
like a
would be.
G9 or anything. The only other thing I think we could have a problem with in terms of the in terms of the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, and this is more of a personal thing in our business, is actually the recording media aspect. Yes, you can put a CFast card in. Yes, you can put an SD card in. You can do a USB-C SSD, and that is fantastic. I'm really happy Blackmagic did that. But because you're filming to RAW, to ProRes, so on and so forth, it's going to eat up a lot of room on your storage devices. And yes, you get what you pay for. You get what kind of resolution you use. So if you want high resolution, good quality images, obviously you're going to need to film in a higher bit rate. RAW has its pros to it, but still, in terms of what we do, event videography for weddings especially, I only want to see at the end of a wedding, I only want to see about 200 gigabytes of footage.
Yeah.
I don't really want to deal with anything more than that, because after that, it just is way too much video file space, especially if I have to send it to someone else in the studio, an editor, whatever. Having, a terabyte of footage, if I shot in like full RAW on this camera, could be
Detrimental.
could be challenging for what we do. I mean, I fully understand why you still want to shoot in RAW. I still want to shoot in RAW. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But I don't know if for what we do, it's really worth it. So even though this camera is only $1,300, is it worth it for event videography? I don't really know.
Yeah.
I don't really know. Yes, there are some other means of recording. You can do like ProRes LT or proxy files. So those are going to be lower files, and only like 50 megabits per second or so. But will you get really all the quality you want? I don't know.
And then if you're shooting in low light,
yeah, exactly. So
we don't know yet.
No one knows.
Yeah, that's the one thing that sucks.
So
we don't know yet.
Are we gonna get it? I don't know.
It also comes out in September, and we're kind of looking to buy a camera sooner, maybe.
Yeah, we definitely need a camera for next month.
Yeah, for May.
May, we're pretty busy, and you'll stay tuned for that. We have some video coverage coming to you for what we're doing in May.
Yeah.
But so are we gonna get it? I don't know. I think in September, October timeframe, we need to start looking into potentially getting a review unit from Blackmagic. Blackmagic, sponsor us, please. We'll give you the camera back afterwards.
Yeah.
We just want to try it out. Or we probably will just try to rent it from like Lens Rentals or something like that. So, guys, what do you guys think about the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera? Are you interested in buying it? What pros and cons do you think you have? Zach, is there anything you need to mention about this camera, about the podcast, anything?
Honestly, no. I think we hit it all. Overall, for me, would I buy it? Probably on the less likely side. But I definitely am really looking forward to trying it.
Most certainly.
Seeing how good of a camera it is. Because Blackmagic, they make good stuff, but we'll see.
Yeah, they make good stuff, but is it good for our field of work? I don't know. So, guys, if you have any questions or anything, leave that in the comment section below, and we'll answer them in the next podcast. Anyway, I'm Eric.
And I'm Zach.
And we'll catch you in the next one. That sounded pretty good. At least
Were you recording?
Yeah, I'm recording.